Hi, I'm the Love Addict. Welcome to my channel. My real name is Gina, and I share my experience with love addiction and anxious attachment to hopefully help you have a new experience in your love life. Today, I'm gonna be sharing with you the top 5 books that changed my love life. One of the biggest questions I get across my social media platforms is what books can I recommend? If you're looking for some books that are gonna help you in your relationship, maybe you're having some relationship anxiety, maybe you're trying to work on your own securities, these books are gonna be super helpful to you. Now, I love this question. I'm a really big reader, and most of the stuff I talk about on social media is from a book somewhere. I don't make up anything. I could pretty much tell you where everything came from. I really believe that reading books and getting knowledgeable about love addiction or anxious attachment or just attachment styles in general is really gonna be the first step in getting prepared to have a new experience. All of these books that I'm gonna be sharing with you today came to me at different parts of my journey, helped me work on my own inner healing, eventually find a healthy relationship, and to this day continue to work on being a healthy partner. Quick disclaimer, I am not a licensed psychologist. This is not therapy. I'm just a person sharing my own experience. Please don't try and heal on your own. Please use whatever resources you have available, whether that is therapy or counseling or a 12-step program. Find what works for you, and like always, I will put links to resources down below. All right, so let's get into the books. Like I said, these are all books that came to me on different parts of my journey, so hopefully I'm gonna help you find the book that is gonna be good for you today, where you're at in your journey. So the first book I have for you today is Facing Love Addiction by Pia Mellody. So I'm gonna be honest with you guys. When I first started reading this book, I think I read half of it and I had to put it down because I was in such a emotional place at the time when this book came to me. And honestly, I just couldn't get through it because it was so terrifying. This book was really a wake-up call for me because it kind of was the catalyst to me realizing that I was sort of the problem and I really needed to start working on myself if I was gonna have a new experience in dating and relationships. So I wanna talk to you about the author really quick. Pia Mellody is a licensed psychologist. I believe she's still alive, and she was really big in the 80s and 90s. She also wrote the book Facing Codependency, which I'm not gonna talk about today, but just so you guys know, if codependency is one of those buzzwords that feels aligned to you, she also wrote that book. Another really cool thing that I like about Pia Mellody is that she started this recovery center called The Meadows, which I believe is in Arizona. I haven't gone, but I know a lot of women who have, and it sounds like they've had really good experiences. I just think it's interesting because you don't think of love addiction as something that you can go to treatment for, but apparently it is a thing and people do it, and I've heard really good things about it. This book has a really good format. What I like about it is it starts with the problem. So it's gonna talk about what a love addict is, what a love avoidant is, what are the characteristics of that, and what is that cycle, what does that dynamic look like when those people are together. So I just wanna give Pia some credit for that because that is an idea that's going to thread through the rest of our books today, and I kind of just wanna credit Pia and be like, okay, so you were there first, Pia, talking about the co-addicted relationship, we see you. Another sort of really hot topic that I see across my platforms with my followers is people wanting to know how to take a break. So Pia Mellody is gonna be a little bit more forgiving with us in terms of taking a break and encouraging us, and to make sure that we are doing some work in that time before we go back to our partner. And she actually gives us exercises in this book that we should be doing when we have that time away from our significant other. And what I always tell people is one of two things will happen. You either did the work and you get back with your partner, or you did the work and you realize that maybe that person's not a good fit for you and you have the energy and space to go off on your own and possibly be with someone else in the future. The third part of Facing Love Addiction is going to talk to us about healthy relationships, because let's face it, if you're like me and you're reading this book, I had never been in a healthy relationship before, so I didn't really know what it looked like. So this book gave me an opportunity to read about what a healthy relationship looks like and sort of go there in my mind and imagine it before I had ever actually experienced it. There's also a really fun chapter in here called Unrealistic Expectations, and I think it was written by her then husband, Pat. I believe they got divorced. Sorry, Pat and Pia. We're still gonna read the book anyway. It has so much more meaning now that I'm in a relationship and I live with my fiance. I remember specifically that chapter talking about a lot of the things that come up when you live in the same space as somebody, and so it's just super relatable. The last part of this book is gonna have a lot of writing exercises. So I think Pia Mellody is a big 12-stepper if you're familiar with 12-step programs. So I think there's like a little 4th step in here, some inventory writing. So this is gonna be a really good introduction to using writing as a tool. All right, so our second book is going to be How to Break Your Addiction to a Person by Howard M. Halpern. I just love that name, Howard Halpern. Like, he just sounds like the best psychologist on the planet. Howard feels like the therapist I never had. Unfortunately, Howard has passed. Rest in peace, Howard. This is gonna be for people who are really in it, okay? You're in the obsession, maybe you're thinking about this person all the time, maybe you feel like you actually can't live without them. This is for people in the trenches who are struggling, who maybe are ready to cut the cord. So again, maybe if you're like trying to make your relationship work, this might not be the book for you. This is mostly for the people who are like, I need to get out of this to take care of myself. I'm gonna read you the first sentence of this book. It can be very hard to end a love relationship, even when you know it is bad for you. Okay, so that just tells us what the whole book is about right here. Howard is gonna be straightforward with us. He's not gonna sugarcoat anything. He goes on to say, I am talking about relationships that are dead ends. I am talking about attachments to people who are painfully unattainable, perhaps because they are committed to someone else or don't want a committed relationship or are incapable of one. The format of this book is gonna be a little bit different. Howard is gonna use other people's personal stories to help us identify and relate. So I really like those types of self-help because I'm not the tough love kind of girl. I need someone to be nice to me and sort of let me figure out things on my own. I don't do well with the like, girl, leave him. If I love somebody, it's not easy for me to leave like that. So I need to come to things on my own terms, and I think Howard really helps us do that. This book is gonna be really heavy on vocabulary words. Howard introduces us to the word limerence, which is this word for this overwhelming feeling that you feel when you really like someone, and maybe it's chemistry, but you mistake it for like a long-term lasting possibility when maybe it's not that. That's called limerence. So unlike Pia Melody in Facing Love Addiction, Howard is gonna be a little bit more strict with us about taking breaks. He's gonna tell us that we need to cut the ties, okay? If you've heard about no contact, I think we have Uncle Howard to thank for that. This book is also gonna have some writing exercises in the back. There's a whole chapter called Addiction Breaking Techniques, the use of writing. So again, Howard is teaching us how to use writing as a tool, super helpful. And also gonna be really helpful to energetically cut that cord if you are ready to do so. Rest in peace, Howard. Thank you for this book. Okay, so our third book is probably the most well-known, most popular, and if you followed me on social media, you know that I talk about this book all the time. It is Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel S.F. Heller. Honestly, I think this book is super important and super influential. I think it's really opening the door for everyone to learn about attachment styles and how they show up into relationships. It's really normalizing it and sort of allowing us to talk about it. This book is gonna give a really basic overview into attachment theory. So this is gonna be really good if you're a beginner, you're just now learning about it. I always recommend people to start here. If you are a little bit more educated about attachment theory, you'll probably start seeing these words like fearful, disorganized. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole. We just wanna start really simple, and this is a really good place to start. So this book reminds me a lot of Facing Love Addiction by Pia Melody. It's gonna have very similar words. Instead of love addict, we have anxious attachment. Instead of love avoidant, we have avoidant. So that one's the same. But instead of pathologizing and sort of turning relationship anxiety into an addiction, it is normalizing it and saying that everyone has an attachment style and there's just gonna be different variants of how people are showing up into romantic relationships. So it's sort of taking the shame out of the labels, which I really like. I will warn you and say that this is a little bit biased towards people with anxious attachment style. It's going to villainize the avoidant a little bit. Do they deserve it? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I think the best part about this book is a description of what a secure attachment style looks like. It tells us that a secure attachment is the goal. It's the goal for us. It's the goal for us to find a partner who is as close as possible to having a secure attachment style. Sort of looking through a healthy relationship through the lens of secure attachment. What does it look like? What does it look like for you to have a secure attachment? What does it look like to be in a relationship with someone that has a secure attachment? One of the ways that attached is going to be different is it's going to talk about the dependency that naturally forms with your partner. So maybe that's something where it's a little bit different from Facing Love Addiction, where Pia Melody is going to say, no, you're too dependent, right? You're codependent with your partner. You need to gain independence. Whereas attached is going to say, no, it's natural to be dependent on a person that you're in a relationship with. So sort of varying ideas around dependency. So I will give a little bit of a disclaimer and say that this book makes the anxious avoidant dynamic sound really hopeless. I know we've had varying degrees, right? Like Pia Melody is going to be a little bit more forgiving. She's going to say, you guys can make it work. Let's just do some writing and healing and figure it out. Howard Halpern's saying, cut that person, get out of there. And Amir Levine and Rachel S.F. Heller are going to say, you are in a trap. It is hard to get out. Good luck. We love this book. Definitely a good place to start. I know it's my third book in here, but start with this one. fun. It's really new, it's relevant, super easy read. So this video is about the top 5 books that changed my life. And the next book I have did change my life in some ways, but I'm not gonna lie, I feel like it kind of messed with my head a little bit. But I like to share about it because it's controversial and it's offering a different side of things. So this book is called Getting to I Do by Pat Allen. Pat Allen was really big in the 90s. I believe she's still alive. I believe she's still working. She's been a psychotherapist for like 40 years. I think I had heard about this book, and to be honest, like, I don't know if I was looking to get married when I found this book, but there was just something enticing about it. Getting to I Do, the secret to doing relationships right. It kind of has this like clickbait feel to it, right? Where it's like, oh, I want to get married. I'm ready to find the one, and I'm going to pick up this book. And I could see how it'd be really enticing to a lot of women, especially maybe women who haven't found somebody yet and they're starting to get a little desperate. That can mess with us a little bit, right? Because when we're desperate and we really want somebody, we can start to sort of mold. And if someone tells us, hey, this is how you do it, we can start sort of shifting to that. And I think this book can be a little bit dangerous in that way. This book has some interesting ideas about men and women. It's pretty controversial. I won't say it's as misogynistic as the men's movement that is going on the internet and the planet. So Dr. Pat Allen talks about different energies. Instead of saying man and woman, she says masculine energy and feminine energy. And while it's implied, she doesn't necessarily say that the woman has to be the feminine energy and the masculine has to be the man, but she does say that they sort of have to equal each other out. So if I'm a woman and I decide that I want to be masculine, meaning I want to have a job and a career and make money and support my family, all of those masculine energy characteristics, I need to find someone who complements that. So maybe I need to find a man who is going to be a little bit more sensitive, in tune with his feelings. Maybe he wants to stay home with the kids and let me be the one that sort of wears the pants, so to speak. So it is kind of misogynistic in that way, where it says you can't really have both. One person has to be the person at home and one person has to be the one working. She's really unapologetic about that, but she does sort of open the door and say, if you want to be a career woman, you just have to make sure that you find someone who is a little bit more sensitive. Maybe he wants to stay home with the kids and take care of the house. That's fine. Dr. Pat Allen actually warns us that an equal relationship is not gonna work, that we should be worried about equality and that we should rather seek for equanimity. I don't know, what do you guys think? Is that why divorce rates are so high? So one thing that I do use with my partner that I like is the use of language. I decided if I'm going by this book, I'm feminine energy. So I'm gonna focus on how I feel, and I'm going to share with my partner how I feel, and I'm gonna ask him how he thinks, because my partner is more masculine. He uses his brain and his logic and his decision making. So I like that, and I think it works for us because we are a little bit more sort of stereotypical. So I can use I feel and not, be like, I'm mad that my man doesn't care what I think. Sometimes I do, and I get to have that experience, but for the most part, using language, I use the words I feel sad, I feel not paid attention to. What do you think about that? Another sort of language tool that my partner and I use that I think really works is, would you be willing? Would you be willing to take the dog out for me tonight? And we both sort of like, it's this funny acknowledgement. Like as soon as I hear him say, would you be willing? I'm like, oh crap. Like he's asking me something that I know I don't want to do. But his use of the would you be willing is like, okay, you're my partner. He's asking me to do something. He's using words to communicate. And I have the option to say no, right? And I do it too. So I invite you, if you dare, to read the book for yourself and make your own decisions. This book definitely touched a nerve for me a little bit and made me kind of feel like all men are secretly misogynistic, which is not fun. Lastly, but definitely not least, is Breakup Boot Camp by Amy Chan. I will tell you, this is the book I wish I wrote. When I read this book, I thought if I had written a book, this is what I hope that I would have written down. I just love Amy Chan. I follow her on socials. She seems like someone you want to be friends with. Now, Amy is not a psychologist. She is an author and an entrepreneur, and she started a breakup boot camp called Renew that seems really swanky. I think it's like in upstate New York. I haven't looked at the price, probably pretty expensive, but it just seems like the reset that you would need coming out of a breakup. She talks about it a lot in here, and hopefully I'll never have to go as a client, but hopefully I could go one day and maybe hang out with them. It just seems super cool. So the little subtitle on this book is is The Science of Rewiring Your Heart. So as I said, Amy is not a scientist, but she is going to outsource and provide resources from us from experts who know what they're talking about. The chapter titles of this book are amazing. The first chapter is called It's Never Just About the Ex. And I feel like that encompasses this book so much and really hits this point of us that we already know, right? That it's not about the other person. It's about me. It's about the feelings that are coming up for me because of this other person. It's really about our fears, our beliefs, all of the feelings that are coming up for us when we get rejected or our heart gets broken. Of course, we want to encourage totally feeling all the feelings, but it is helpful sometimes to get a little of distance between us and the feelings and say, you know what? I know it seems real and I know it feels like this is really about this person, but this is really about me and my own journey and my healing. One of the things that I really love about this book and about Amy is that she talks about our thinking. If you took my mindful dating class, you know that I talk a lot about our thoughts, what's happening in our head, and she really helps us grow that muscle of being aware of our thoughts, what's happening between the ears. Another really popular question I get across my platforms is how to practice self-soothing, and this book gives a lot of exercises about how to handle our feelings in the moment and what we can actually do when we're feeling really activated. So this is the book that I always recommend for people that ask me that. I'm gonna attempt to draw another little thread here, going back to Howard Halpern, How to Break Your Addiction to a Person. If you remember, I said earlier in this video, he introduced us to the word limerence, which was this overwhelming feeling of being in love with somebody. Amy Chan is gonna bring that back around and teach us that just because we might feel this overwhelming chemistry doesn't mean that a long-term relationship is gonna work out with that person. And she even takes it a step further and tells us that that might even be a warning sign. And I think they talk about that at Attached too, that maybe that person is someone to stay away from, that maybe that person is signaling to us that that's an anxious avoidant dynamic relationship. She shares how a healthy relationship should be calm and relaxed and not overwhelming most of the time. Get the book, go to the boot camp. We love Amy Chan. So those are my top 5 books that I always recommend to people, just depending on where they're at in their journey or what specifically they're looking for. If you've read any of these books, let me know in the comments. Let me know which ones you like. If you haven't, let me know which book you're gonna read next. Don't forget, please like this video. Please share it with a friend. The kindest thing that you can do is pass this video along to someone who maybe needs to see it, maybe needs these book recommendations. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok if you're not following me already. I am the Love Addict Official across all platforms. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so you will get notified about next week's video. Bye!